Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session 2 of our project management journey. And more than just saying project management journey, how do I do a good project? And our mentor, coach, guru for our whole series, Payson Hall, is available here to share some insights on I've got the project. I have initiated the project. We have created the project charter. There is an initial scope definition by the sponsor. It has been vetted out by the different sponsors. Everybody's looked at it, reviewed it. It looks good. Now we move to the planning phase. We are planning the schedule. We are basically planning the time. We are planning the milestones. The milestones is defined on a high level by the project sponsor, but we are planning all this out. So Payson, help us get started.
Well, the first question is, how detailed do the plans need to be? If you're doing a $1 billion project, it's probably going to be much more elaborate than if you're planning a 4-year-old's birthday party. So I think the first step in talking about project scope is asking, are there any rules and tools that we need to discuss with the team? For example, if we're doing a large documentation project, there's a conversation we're going to have on that project. What word processor are we using? What fonts are we using? What's a sample chapter look like? We can do that at the start of the project, or we can do it in the middle. If we do it in the middle, there's going to be a bunch of rework. So we'll talk about what's the size and complexity and risk of the project. That's going to inform how detailed our plans are going to be. For example, before we started recording, we were talking about requirements management. You and I both work in the software space. If we're going to build a body of requirements that define the scope of the project, we need to make sure that we agree who can change the requirements, who can add them, and who can delete them, right? Be a part and parcel of change management. But the most important piece, if we've got a good definition, I think, is coming up with a good task list or a work breakdown structure, if we want to use the fancy words, a big list of to-dos of everything we need to do on the project. That's the most important planning step, is coming up with as comprehensive as we can list of what has to be done.
And this, as a project manager, I'm going to ask you a question. Is this work breakdown structure, it is done along with the team, or I do it as a project manager? I'm a novice project manager. I've just started my journey.
I always want to do it with the team, because there's going to be some things I can't see. And what happens is we're talking about what's the work, is you're going to develop over time a pretty keen sense of when people are making assumptions and when they're saying things that, no, this is the way it is, or I'm assuming this is the way it is. And so if you're working with other people, they can catch your assumptions and you can catch theirs. But no, I always want to plan with my team. I need their expertise. I mean, I've been doing stuff for 40 years, but you sit in a room with a team, usually got 100 years experience. They've encountered problems, I haven't. So their input to planning is really important. What I do when I'm planning is I use Post-its. I'm a huge fan of Post-its. You can go really fast that way. Get a couple of sheets of paper on the wall, take the package of give everybody a package of Post-its and a pen, and say, what's all the stuff we need to do to get this project done? We can brainstorm really fast that way. Everybody's got a pad of Post-its. We can brainstorm as fast as 4 or 5 people can write.
And I think the main point on which you have said it very well is we need to have a very robust scope definition. Like, scope should be very well defined. And I totally agree, because that's the crux of the project. That is what we are giving. That is what we are planning, as long as I know what I'm doing. Correct?
Yeah.
Payson, I'm going to digress a bit, and I'm going to ask you a question on the scope definition and how I'm preparing my task list. What do you think are common pitfalls? What do you think there are common failure weak points?
Absolutely. I think people worry so much about getting too far into the weeds that they use vague and ambiguous language to try to plan at a high level. So let me give you an example. I think a good task would be create a test plan. Another task might be execute the test plan and document the results. Another task might be review the test plan and identify the defects and create tickets for them. And another task might be correct the defects found during testing. Where we run into trouble is when people have a task in their plan called testing. And it's not really clear what they're testing. It doesn't describe the process they're using. And that's a really hard task to estimate until we've gotten down into the detail.
Into the weeds. And also probably what type of testing is it? Are you doing system testing, integration testing, or
Right.
user text? Well, UAT is a separate phase by itself, but I'm just saying we need to even define what type of testing we are doing, what environment we are testing, etc. That will help define the estimates. Any other insights you want to talk about in the scope definition area, Payson?
In terms of task definition, for the two biggest tips I have for a young project manager is when you're describing tasks, have people use verbs and nouns. Use small sentences. Don't say testing. Explain what you're testing. What kind of testing are you doing, right? And the other thing is, as people are brainstorming and creating tasks, I'm going to ask myself internally, I'm going to say, is it absolutely unambiguous and clear what this task creates that I need? And if there's any ambiguity, I'll ask that question out loud. So, you know, if you say, we got to polish the twonky, I'm going to say, wait a minute, what exactly does that mean? And how do we know we're done? How much are you going to polish it? Let's make sure that we know what these words mean. And the nice thing about a Post-it is I use these 3x3 Post-its, so you can fit everything I'm talking about in the top inch. And now you get all this place to add notes or assumptions if we need to describe, oh, here's what I mean by that, right?
And where do we store those Post-its, Payson?
I stick them up on the wall so we can see them. If you make them a hierarchy, all the work breakdown structure is a hierarchical representation of the project work. So at the top, we say, there's a project. Here's the big chunks of the project. You break it down further and further, and the leaves of that are the tasks, right? The lowest level things are tasks. So we can brainstorm really fast and we can say, do we understand everything that has to happen? Once the team says, yes, I can't think of anything that has to happen that's not up there, we have a great start at planning.
I think it is very, and you said something which is so pertinent that as a new, say I'm a new project manager and the task list, it's very important to, how much do you think, I have two questions, but my first question is, how much do you think this should be vetted out with the sponsor, for example? Do they really need to know the weeds of the
I will review, I'll offer to review the plans with the sponsor. I'm certainly going to review the results. Some sponsors want to get into the weeds. If it's early in my relationship with the sponsor, they might want to walk through the details. Once we've worked together before, unless there's some area of expertise where they want to zoom in, normally sponsors don't want to be bothered getting into the details of the plan once they have confidence that you know how to build a plan and that you'll be candid with them.
Payson, and that is good that I'm a brand new project manager, but are there any special issues which, like more like a seasoned project manager, they should be aware of some traps being laid in this area of scope definition?
I think that the biggest trap is people who say we don't have enough information to proceed.
Yes.
Sometimes that's absolutely true. But what my preferred way of dealing with it, when someone says, we don't have enough information to do this, say, what would be a reasonable assumption we could make right now? Document that assumption on an assumptions list and keep going. So we get a sense of momentum, we get a bad draft of a plan, and then we can take the assumptions list and go do some research and come back and have another session to do revisions. Where it gets really frustrating, and you know, you and I have both been in this meeting, where we get 10 minutes in and someone says, oh, without this answer, we can't plan. So, all right, I'll go call someone. And now once everyone's sitting around twiddling their thumbs and sipping coffee, oh, I come back, well, I couldn't get hold of them. They're in a meeting, but I'll be able to get hold of them in an hour. And everybody's sitting on their hands. So we want to keep a sense of momentum it's very expensive to have a meeting with the whole team in a room, and I want to use that time as best I can. So it's not that we don't do the research. We don't stop and do research. We're going to say, what are some reasonable assumptions? Let's get those on paper. We can come back and revisit and revise later.
Are there any, or is there any situation, Basin, you would like to share? Because now all projects, a lot of projects have moved totally into the virtual world. How do we handle this in the virtual world?
Oh, I wish I had a really tidy answer for that. My understanding is there's some tools that let you share a
Whiteboards.
virtual whiteboard.
Mhm.
If I could only have a couple of plane tickets for the whole project, I'd try to get all the team on in a single location for a couple of days to do planning, because that's a chance to do the norming and forming and really get a chance to know each other. If I can't, I can't, and I need to find some other mechanisms. Like I said, boy, yeah, you can do virtual. It's really hard. No one I know has the resolution on their screen of five, that would be the equivalent of 5 pages of flip chart paper with 150 Post-its on it.
No, I agree. And you know what I want to tell you is, because a lot of us work in the virtual world, and having like a whiteboard, I've seen this happen so many times. The whiteboard is not sharing, it's not opening on my laptop, I'm not being able to share, I cannot see. So then the focus moves from defining the task list.
Yeah.
It's more into getting that whiteboard to work, right?
Yeah, we don't want the technology to be in the way. I'm a big fan of low tech. That's why at this stage of planning, Post-its and pencils are great.
No, I think they're great.
Later, I'm going to want to use a computer to build my schedule. But right now, I just want to capture all the tasks we can think of with verbs and nouns, capturing any assumptions, making sure we know what the deliverables are going to be for the tasks. And then when we're done, we can say, when we think we're done, we've got a work breakdown started, we say, great. So what we're saying is, when every task up here is complete, we've met the chartered scope requirements. Is that, if that's true, great, we're ready to move on to scheduling. What we're building right now is the preliminary schedule. It's going to be wrong, but it's a necessary intermediate work product. It's a draft.
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes very good sense. So, Payson, I think we got a lot of good insights of scope definition, defining the task list. I feel that this is a good place for us to end this session today. And if there are any last minute insights from you, I would love to hear from you, Payson.
No, I think one of the things I want to do, I don't want to rush planning, but I like to make sure that it's aggressive and short. No shorter than, I don't want to make it any shorter than it needs to be. If you hear someone saying, yeah, we've been planning this for 2 months, I worry. Unless you're planning a nuclear power plant.
Yeah, or a NASA launch.
Yeah,
Right?
NASA launch. Yeah, we don't want to be spending months doing this. And
And
for most manageable sized projects, a day or 2 is usually sufficient to make a good start at planning.
And Payson, I cannot even tell you how much to thank you, because even in our last recording session, you said something very important, that for initiation, we create a project charter, a well-defined project charter. But a well-defined project charter does not need to be a large and a huge voluminous project charter. The same thing for planning, you said, that we need to have an aggressive, focused planning session. Doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be like 2 months long, as you were giving the example. So I think this is a good time for us to move ahead
We'll
with,
break and we can tease scheduling for the next session.
and we will talk more about schedule management and other areas of planning. Ultimately, I'm going to end it off saying that planning, 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 that's the crux. So if we do planning well, our project goes well. Thank you, everyone, for listening in, tuning in, and stay tuned for our next episode.